roommate frustrations escalate as I accidentally express my wish for a single dorm, leaving her annoyed and our friendship on shaky ground. I have never posted anything like this on Reddit before, so I apologize if this is not formatted correctly. However, I don't have anyone else to discuss this with, and I anticipate this will be a lengthy post due to the considerable context. I am a 17-year-old female attending a boarding high school, and I share my living space with my roommate, Abi, who is also 17. I was friends with Abi before coming to this school since we met at a summer camp organized by the same institution, and I somewhat dismissed the advice I heard about not being roommates with friends. Being shy, I prefer to rely on familiar faces rather than live with someone I do not know at all. During our first year here, things were relatively fine, but the past year has been quite challenging. It started off well, but when the spring semester commenced, everything began to take a downturn. Abi has medications for her mental health, and in the past, she has occasionally forgotten to take them, which has resulted in her experiencing noticeable depression. Our mutual friends and I became genuinely worried and tried to comfort her, and I have even dedicated entire days to supporting her. To address this, I started reminding her daily to take her medication. However, this semester, she has increasingly neglected to take them, and I often wish I had remembered to remind her that morning. We both use Discord and have notifications active for our server, so I might set up a bot to remind her even when I forget. I do not hold her responsible for these lapses, but it does make me uneasy at times, especially given that her failure to take her medication has previously put her in dangerous situations, such as almost crashing her car due to dissociation. All this talk about medication leads to another issue. Abi does not appreciate it when I feel down. The winter months tend to trigger my feelings of sadness, and I miss my family and my cat a great deal while at school, as they are an hour and a half away. Additionally, I have a troubling history of friends ghosting me after finding new friends, which sometimes makes me feel insecure about my place in our friend group. This insecurity causes me to decline social invitations and retreat to my room to sleep it off. A couple of weeks ago, I was feeling particularly low, and because her actual antidepressant medication is managed by the school nurse who oversees the dosages, Abi offered me a bottle of magnesium pills, instructed me to take them, and then left. I shared a photo of them with my mother, a registered nurse, who advised against taking them without checking magnesium levels first. I opted not to take the pills, but when Abi returned, she appeared irritated that I had not consumed them. I attempted to explain that my mother had advised me against taking medications that were not prescribed to me, but this did not alter the annoyed demeanor she displayed. Later, I inquired why she seemed put out by my mother's interference. This had happened once before, and she revealed that she had read my texts to my mother where I had vented about her, specifically related to her poor medication habits. She insisted that she did not need help, as my mother had expressed. I felt somewhat frustrated that Abi had intruded into my private messages, but I realized it was my fault for leaving my phone unlocked on the messaging app at that moment. I should have been more careful. Then there was the snoring incident that occurred last week. Abi is a snorer, and I am the type of person who requires some quiet to sleep well. One morning, after waking early and unable to fall back asleep due to her snoring, I decided to leave our room with a blanket and find a couch in the common room to rest. Abi was clearly upset about this. Upon waking, I found her looking over me and questioning why I had left the room, to which I replied that it was because she was snoring. She left without responding further and seemed annoyed. When I returned to the room about an hour later, she was in bed on her phone. I asked if she had taken her medication for the day. It was around the time she typically does, and she silently exited the room. It did not take long for her to return, suggesting she did not actually go to the nurse and probably had not taken her medication. That evening, she chose not to sleep in our room, and when I asked about it, she evaded giving a clear answer. I suspected her decision was related to my comment about her snoring. Abi's attitude was causing me anxiety, so I confided in a mutual friend, with permission, feeling that I had already shared enough with my parents and hoped this friend could offer some perspective. She agreed that Abi needed to improve her medication adherence, and it was from her that I learned Abi had stayed in one of the junior students' rooms overnight. I later encountered that junior in the stairwell and apologized for my role in Abai's decision to sleep in their room. In retrospect, I regret making that apology. Apparently, the junior informed Abai about my apology, and my mutual friend also relayed what I had shared about Abai. Looking back, I feel foolish for discussing anything at all. I should have kept my mouth shut. When Abai returned to our room, she blocked both exits, our main door and the bathroom door we share with our neighbors, and began to admonish me for apologizing to the junior, and for what I had confided to the mutual friend. I cannot recall every detail, as it all happened so quickly, and I was left feeling breathless and scared after she stormed out and slammed the door. I worried she would tell our other friends, both in real life and online, to sever ties with me because of how foolish and terrible I felt. That night, I left several Discord servers where our online friend group gathered before I could be removed and went to bed early due to sheer exhaustion. I believe I have mostly calmed down since that confrontation, but I had considered avoiding everyone by sneaking to the common room to sleep there in a spot where the resident assistant wouldn't find me, spending all my free time in the rec area of the school and only returning to our room for nightly checks and to shower. However, that plan quickly felt impossible, and I abandoned it. The atmosphere within the friend group feels different when I am present. I suspect Abai has shared her grievances with them. Additionally, during this period, Abai also confided that she intended to deliberately skip taking her medication as a form of punishment that day, but she ultimately took them anyway because I reminded her. I feel terrible about this. Things appeared to have settled down, aside from the tension within the friend group, at least until the subject incident. I have received my acceptance letter from college and have begun the process of securing dorm housing. I sincerely do not want a roommate due to everything I have detailed, so I selected my preferences in such a way as to maximize my chances of getting a single room. The university allows students to identify their top 8 dorm choices and room types. Unfortunately, I inadvertently mentioned to Abai during lunch with her and another mutual friend that I would be thrilled at the prospect of a single room in college. As a result, Abai is once again upset with me and is acting distant, which is increasing my anxiety once more. I dread spending another 2.5 months with someone who appears annoyed with me most of the time but is unwilling to articulate why. Perhaps I am overreacting, and this may just be something I deserve. I don't know. Maybe I am simply too sensitive about everything. In summary, my roommate has done many things that make me uncomfortable, and I inadvertently expressed that I would be pleased to have a single room in college. Consequently, Abai is upset with me, and I am beginning to think I might be overreacting by wishing to not have a roommate. Story 2. Wrestling at a gathering led to chaos. Drunk Jonathan leaves solo. Angry Rebecca threatens me, and drama spirals out of control. This event occurred approximately 6 months ago, and things have finally calmed down. However, for the sake of privacy, I will be using pseudonyms. I, 21, female, and my partner, Reggie, 23, male, have been in a relationship for 3 years. When we initially started dating, we steered clear of public gatherings with each other's friends until we felt comfortable and confident in our relationship. Eventually, we attended a New Year's Eve party at one of Reggie's friends' homes. Most of his friends and their significant others were present, except for one individual, Jonathan's girlfriend, Rebecca. She was not attending because she did not get along with another guy in the group, Tony. The background is that Rebecca and Tony had been involved with each other for about 3 months, 3 years before this event. Prior to Rebecca dating Jonathan, there was widespread speculation that she got together with him out of spite for Tony. Regardless, she and Jonathan were still together 3 years later, but she actively avoided any events where Tony would be present, despite the fact that Tony had a girlfriend as well. At the New Year's Eve party, Reggie and I were enjoying ourselves, while Jonathan, being one of Reggie's close friends, spent most of the night talking with him. I had worked throughout the entire Christmas period and was feeling quite tired, so I informed the group I was going to take a quick nap before joining them for the countdown. When I woke up, Jonathan and I began conversing, mostly about the motorcycle I wanted to purchase once I received my license. Since he had ridden his bike to the gathering, I asked if I could take a look at it, and Reggie accompanied us. After some additional small talk, I left to join some of the girlfriends inside for a break from all the male energy. Upon returning outside, I noticed Jonathan was missing. I inquired with Reggie about his whereabouts, and he casually remarked that Jonathan had left on his bike. By this time, it was 11 p.m., and Jonathan had been drinking continuously since 5 p.m. I felt concerned and aggravated that they had allowed him to leave while intoxicated, but chose not to pursue the issue any further. Fast forward to July 4th. I was invited to a gathering at Jonathan's home, but Reggie was out of town for work. He encouraged me to go anyway to better familiarize myself with his friends. I informed Jonathan that I could not afford any drinks, so I would remain sober. He offered to procure some alcohol for us to share since he needed someone to help pace him and prevent him from getting excessively drunk too quickly. At the party, I spent most of my time chatting with Jonathan's mother and stepfather, as we worked in the same industry. Meanwhile, Jonathan and I were enjoying vodka raspberry cocktails together. We finished the bottle quite quickly, prompting him to leave with a few of the guys to get more on foot, not driving. When they returned, we continued drinking, laughing, and having a great time. I kept Reggie informed through texts and FaceTime to ensure he felt included. At a certain point, I noticed Tony was at the party, so I asked Jonathan whether Rebecca would be attending. He informed me that she would not, and I shrugged it off, saying, "That's unfortunate, but at least all your friends are here." He smiled and resumed chatting with the guys. Around midnight, the boys began to get competitive and started wrestling on the grass. I grew up in an environment where wrestling and contact sports like mixed martial arts were common, and since I was often paired with boys in training, I asked if I could join in. They were all in favor. I ended up throwing one of them onto the grass quite forcefully, which surprised everyone and led them to want to take turns wrestling with me. I managed to put a few of them in holds. It was enjoyable, and we concluded the wrestling there. After more drinking, the group started to wind down, and most of the guys fell asleep in the living room. I asked Jonathan if I could sleep in one of the bedrooms instead, for added comfort. He said that the only available room was his, but he would sleep on the floor while I took the bed. As we chatted before going to sleep, I asked him why he had left the New Year's Eve party on his bike while intoxicated. He admitted that he was missing Rebecca and just wanted to go home, but later realized how foolish and dangerous his choice was. I gave him a brief lecture regarding how reckless that was, especially as a motorcycle rider. He took the criticism well and acknowledged his error. Then, unprompted, he mentioned that he had called Rebecca that night, asking if he could stay at her place since it was closer. We were approximately 2 hours from home. He told her he had been drinking, but she declined, stating it was too late and he should just go home. I told him that if it were my partner, I would not have allowed Reggie to ride home drunk. I would have picked him up and retrieved his bike the next day. Curious, I asked why Rebecca did not come to the party. He explained that she had initially requested all the details but canceled at the last moment, claiming she would rather spend time with a friend, without specifying who. He then expressed frustration about their rocky relationship, admitting he was unsure how to navigate it. I offered him some basic advice to communicate his feelings to her and try to address their issues. He agreed and left it at that. We went to sleep with the door open. He was on the floor, and I occupied the bed. The following morning, I called Reggie. He was not pleased about me sharing a room with Jonathan, but after we discussed it, we established a boundary and everything was resolved. Meanwhile, Rebecca called Jonathan, yelling at him and accusing him of being one step closer to sex just for wrestling with me. She referred to me as a slut and threatened to destroy his room, bike, and anything else he valued. Jonathan entered the room after the call, shook his head and said, "Yeah, she's really angry." I apologized for any difficulty this had caused and left around 10 a.m. Later, Jonathan informed me that Rebecca was still furious and even threatened to bash me when she saw me. The next day, Reggie received a message from Tony stating that Rebecca had been asking around, trying to pressure Reggie into being upset about my wrestling with Jonathan. Reggie quickly shut that down, saying he did not care, it was all in good fun. However, Rebecca then messaged Reggie directly, sending erratic messages such as, "I don't know about you, but I wouldn't feel too comfortable if my girlfriend practically had a foursome with my friends." She continued with more outrageous accusations. Reggie told her off and blocked her. I informed Jonathan about the messages, and he was outraged that she was airing their relationship issues to others. They almost ended their relationship, but ultimately managed to talk it through. I decided to distance myself from their drama to avoid adding further strain. In the following days, I noticed that Rebecca had viewed my Instagram story. Jonathan later told me that she had reached out to her cousin, who had attended high school with me, trying to find dirt on me but only received positive comments, which apparently made her even angrier. I viewed her story in return, and she immediately blocked me, prompting me to block her private account. Strangely, I began to see fake accounts viewing my stories. Upon checking, I found one that was linked to her email, so I blocked it. Shortly afterward, I found a new account belonging to one of her friends viewing my stories, so I blocked that one too and made my account private. I later heard through the grapevine that she was still upset and discussing me 2 months later. As a final note, not long after all this transpired, Jonathan invited Tony over for drinks and asked him to bring his girlfriend, only to call him halfway there to say he was not allowed to come because Rebecca forbade it. Yikes, am I the asshole? Story 3. Aita for overreacting and trying to cut off my friend because he keeps disrespecting my boundaries. We have maintained our friendship for approximately 8 years. He is a boy and I am a girl. In my family, we are prohibited from meeting boys without the presence of other girls. From the outset, I communicated this boundary to him very clearly. However, I did meet him once due to an emergency, and I also invited him to my sister's wedding. Therefore, my family is aware of him, and I have shared everything about him with them. At the beginning of our relationship, he confessed that he had a crush on me. I did find him appealing initially, but I made my boundaries explicit. I did not desire a romantic relationship. My family does not permit such matters, and I was not interested in any form of romance with him. Regardless, he continued to message me with comments like "you look good" or "you look beautiful." I initially did not think much of it, but he soon began requesting my photographs. I declined, but he persisted, pressuring and gaslighting me about it. Eventually, I called him and emphatically stated that I would not send any photographs, and if that posed a problem, we could end the friendship. He backed off for a while. After 2 years, I moved abroad to pursue my studies while he remained in my home country. During these past 2 years, we have not communicated frequently. Recently, however, he began making comments such as "I like your voice," "I want to hear your voice," "You are in my dreams," "I miss you," and "I enjoy looking at you." These remarks made me quite uncomfortable. Thus, I called him once more and firmly expressed that I found his comments inappropriate and that he was overstepping his boundaries. In a conversation last week, he attempted to gaslight me again. He conveyed that he felt unfulfilled in our relationship due to our lack of face-to-face meetings. We only converse by phone. I personally dislike texting since it is difficult to convey emotions through written words. He argued that just as I dislike texting, he does not appreciate not meeting in person. This made me feel disheartened, and I began to blame myself for the stagnation in our friendship. I even offered an apology and began to cry. However, upon reflection, I recognized that I had previously informed him that I could not meet him in person. He had agreed to maintain our friendship under those terms, so making me feel guilty about it was both unfair and manipulative. This realization made me angry. Then, one day, he called me in the middle of the day, which was midnight for him, and asked me to continue talking until he fell asleep. I thought something was wrong, so I described my day while continually checking if anything was the matter. He insisted that everything was fine. Then he remarked, "I enjoy hearing your voice." A comment I had previously told him made me uncomfortable. Friends usually say, "I enjoy talking to you," or "I value our conversations." They do not fixate on someone's voice, appearance, or physical attributes. Such comments are typically made when there is romantic interest, not in a friendship. Things escalated further when he began breathing heavily, implying inappropriate intentions. I requested that he stop, but he continued regardless. After pausing for 5 minutes, he resumed. At that point, I became furious, ended the call, and sent him a message to explain my feelings. He then called me back and revealed that he was going through a challenging time. His girlfriend had broken up with him, and they were experiencing issues. I advised him to move on because ex-partners are ex-partners for a reason, but he never heeds my advice. To be honest, I'm not even certain that story is true anymore. He also mentioned that he was struggling with family problems his parents constantly argue, and since his sister moved out, he is the solitary witness to all the disputes. I empathize with him since my own parents fight frequently, but I am 25 years old and have learned how to cope with such situations. He must learn to manage his own as well. He disclosed that he was taking medication and felt drowsy, having taken some just before calling me. I informed him that regardless of what he was experiencing, he had no right to infringe upon my boundaries, make me uncomfortable, or gaslight me. He cannot use his struggles as a justification for disrespecting me. Then, he uttered something that shocked me. He confessed that he does not comprehend boundaries unless faced with an ultimatum. To me, this suggested that he does not take my boundaries seriously unless compelled to do so. I withheld my reaction at that moment. Instead, I took the entire night to reassess the situation. Ultimately, I realized that if he feels so at ease disregarding my boundaries over something so trivial, what would he do in the future? That thought frightened me. Thus, I called him and articulated how I felt. The only thing he consistently repeated was, "It was a mistake." Yet in my view, it was not a mere mistake. A mistake denotes an action undertaken without awareness of its implications. People act for 3 reasons. 1. They were unaware it was wrong, a mistake. 2. They acted intentionally with malicious intent. 3. They behaved carelessly and proceeded regardless. To me, his actions fit into the 3rd category. I informed him that I needed time to reflect, and if I continued to feel uncomfortable, I would let him know we needed to take a break. In reality, however, I am planning to sever ties. Another incident occurred last year when he called me to recount a night out with one of my former friends. They were at a club dancing, and he claimed she was sending him mixed signals. She danced closely with him, but whenever he attempted to touch her, she would pull away or seem uneasy. He also mentioned that she appeared irritated when he touched her. He recounted that he tried to put his arm around her, but she consistently pushed it away. He also attempted to hug her, but she stepped back. He framed it as though she was playing hard to get, yet in the end, they still hooked up, or at least, that's what he told me. Hearing this made me extremely uncomfortable because, to me, no means no. If I say no, I expect to be left alone, irrespective of the context. The fact that he persisted in pursuing her, despite receiving clear signals of her disinterest and visible irritation, unsettled me. Had he simply respected her boundaries and refrained from pressuring her, I believe I would have felt safer around him. Personally, I did not want him to connect with her when she was showing mixed signals. They were not even in any form of relationship, yet he misinterpreted her disinterest as playing hard to get. However, it remains his choice, and they ultimately ended up together, so I did not address the matter further. Yet, what truly alarmed me was when he expressed that he does not understand boundaries unless they are imposed upon him. This left me troubled. If I were to tell him not to touch me, would he interpret that as me playing hard to get as well? The notion that he only recognizes boundaries when faced with an ultimatum led me to question whether I could genuinely trust him. All of these considerations are deeply unsettling for me. I consulted my friends about this and also spoke with my roommate's boyfriend. I lack male friends or figures to confide in regarding this matter. My mutual friends insist that I am overreacting. They have always hoped we would end up together. However, my roommate's boyfriend advised me to cut him off, stating that this behavior is not normal and I should not remain in a situation that makes me uncomfortable, even if I am perceived as wrong. I am in need of advice. I do not wish to lose my friend, but I am afraid of him. I do not harbor anger toward him for making flirtatious comments here and there, if indeed they are flirtations, but I am upset because he is violating my boundaries. Story 4. After getting canceled on social media, I lost my art, friends, and community. Now I am trying to rebuild my life with an online art course. Can I find my passion again? Disclaimer. This is a compilation of 2 posts I shared in another subreddit, and I thought I would share it here. It is also my first time posting in this community. Some days are easier than others. Here it goes. Previous post from January 2025. Hello. This post serves as an update for a post I made last year. For those who are unfamiliar, I am a 30-year-old male, and to be honest, I have always been a rather lonely person, not by choice, but because my friends seem to move on from me. As a coping mechanism, I opened several social media accounts, particularly Twitter and Instagram. Initially, it was nothing significant, just sharing some memes, but during quarantine, I began to express my opinions on nerdy topics that I enjoyed, and I gained quite a following because of it. To put things in perspective, over the course of a year, I went from 1,000 followers to 10,000. I was younger and quite proud of myself for this achievement. My community was so supportive that I started sharing my art, which had been my secret passion since I was a teenager, but I never had the confidence to share it with anyone else before. However, I also attracted a group of people who genuinely disliked me. I first became aware of them when one individual began impersonating me, while another created very disturbing artwork depicting me. When I posted warnings about the situation, they began to spread lies about me for the next 12 months, with each lie worse than the last. I had to disprove every single one of them. Eventually, they fabricated the lie that I was inappropriate with minors, using very old tweets out of context as evidence, and my entire community turned against me. I attempted to explain what was really happening, but nobody cared to listen. I received death threats and doxing attempts. Some individuals I considered my closest internet friends labeled me a monster. Ultimately, I was forced to close nearly all my accounts on the internet. It has been a while since that incident. My internet presence is minimal, and my real life has improved to some extent. However, I still reflect on what occurred and feel quite devastated. Everything I built was lost in an instant because some individuals made false accusations about me. I am sharing this update now because I recently discovered that one of my former artist friends denied ever knowing me, while apparently joining the community of my stalkers. When this person was struggling both financially and emotionally, I supported them, and in return, that individual helped me when my stalkers began their campaign against me. I feel so betrayed that I am not sure if I will ever be able to trust anyone online again. I also have not been able to create art or enjoy the nerdy topics I once discussed since I was ostracized. I understand that social media is not real, and I should move on, and believe me, that is my goal. However, I sometimes cannot help but think that my dreams were stolen, which makes me feel both sad and angry. I lost my internet friends, I lost my community, and worst of all, I lost my passion for many things I once enjoyed. Have you ever experienced similar feelings? Do you have any advice for me? Is there a way for me to rekindle my passion for creating art? Thank you for taking the time to read such a long post. Update made in February 2025. Hello. I believe this will be my last post on this topic unless something significant happens. I am writing this update as a means of closure and because it may assist someone on their own journey. One of my closest Twitter friends actually managed to find me via Steam. After conversing with him and his assuring me that he meant no harm, he provided some updates on my former Twitter and Instagram community. He mentioned that the community to which I belonged, which was already quite divided when I left, has become even more toxic. The same individuals who spread lies about me have now posted naked pictures of another artist they dislike as a form of revenge. Other members of that community have so much conflict with one another that they have resorted to going to actual court for defamation. He stated that doxing incidents occur frequently now. I quote, "You were fortunate when you left. They were attempting to dox you, but you deleted your social media so quickly that they had nothing to work with. Others did not have the same luck." There are apparently some random accounts that insist I am still involved with that community, but under a different name, that I operate a secret Discord server to harm others, and that I am friends with very creepy internet celebrities. However, those accounts are small, so they do not gain much traction. I assure readers that these are lies because I do not intend to ever return to that toxic environment. He informed me that most people in the community do not truly know what happened to me. Additionally, when the witch hunts against me occurred, a significant number of individuals quietly left because they did not want to suffer the same fate as I did. Some have denounced me for notoriety, but some of my closest friends still speak of me fondly in private, which provides me with a bit of peace of mind, to be honest. That is what my friend relayed to me. He may be lying to make me feel better, but I do not wish to verify it myself. Finally, an update on my personal life. In recent months, I have attempted to create art again, but it has been very challenging. I experience a great deal of anxiety when trying to produce anything. However, recently I have felt significantly better, so I believe it is only a matter of time. I also enrolled in an online course at a very prestigious art academy, which began this month, and I am very excited about it. That is all. Thank you for reading.